This episode of On the Line is presented to you by Living.fit, your one stop for all your fitness needs. Make sure you go download the app Living.fit today. Now here's the show. Welcome to On the Line. Today it is Friday, January 28th. We got a great show for you guys today, but first and foremost, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, iHeart, Google, I don't know, whatever you're listening to, make sure you hit that follow button. Maybe even leave a review. That'd be pretty cool. But obviously, great show. Really Indiana centric. So sorry. But we got Pierre Garcon, former Colts, Washington football team, and San Francisco 49ers football player. Great catching up with them. Fun conversation. Then we'll wrap up for interviews with Pat Boylan, sideline reporter for the Indiana Pacers. Also does a little bit of play-by-play for radio and TV. Fills in every now and then. But that was a fun conversation catching up with him. I've known him for a long time. But we wrap up after that with some talk a little UFC. Got a couple notes with that. Give our medals for the week, which we give out medals every Friday to just whoever we want to give our bronze, silver, and gold medal to. So that's fun time, always a good time. And then wrap up a little NFL talk. And it is January 28th. This is the day Jake Paul sent out his diss track on Dana White. So if you haven't listened to that, I'm sure it's a banger. I'm sure he has some great bars. Go listen to that. But first and foremost, here's Pierre Garcon. We are joined by a aspiring pro golfer and entrepreneur in the sock game, Pierre Garcon. Pierre, I bet you've never heard that one, have you?
I never heard that one, especially in the sock game. Entrepreneur in the sock game.
Yeah, you're an entrepreneur in the sock game, but the
aspiring
goal,
is a good one.
Yeah.
Inspiring. I'm trying to make it to the seniors tour. Tour. When I get 50, I should have enough practice time from what I am now to have years on my belt to understand the game of golf.
What's more frustrating, dropping a pass in the NFL or after drilling a perfect shot, just completely shaking it?
Well, the NFL was pro, so it's more frustrating because it's actually pro. But in golf, it is the hardest sport ever. So after you hit a nice drive and then you just literally hit another one fat and just, brings you back to reality.
It's so frustrating. You get one perfect shot and then you keep trying to recreate it. And then you're like, what did I do right that last time that made it so perfect? And I can't recreate it. It's so frustrating.
It is. I'm getting better at it, but it's a long way to go.
It is a long way to go. So one thing I got to ask, is this something I originally didn't really want to ask, but I saw this you said this. So when you first got in the league, did you really struggle with the football at first because there wasn't stripes on it from college?
Yeah, you struggle. When you first make it into the league, you struggle with everything. But it's just like any athlete, you learn to adapt to things and you just keep working at it. But it is different. And then there's lights at the stadium where those stadium lights would enhance the white stripes. But in the NFL, there is no white stripes. So you just really have to pay attention to the ball.
So Jamar Chase wasn't bullshitting them when he said, I have to adjust without the stripes. That was completely true.
Yeah, you have to. You have to adjust a lot of things in the NFL on the fly. And, you don't realize these things until you're in the NFL.
So all of us couch receivers out there need to apologize to Jamar Chase for calling him an idiot for saying, I need to adjust to the white stripes.
The college receivers should take notes from Jamar Chase because he is excelling at his first year in the pro.
Yes, he is. He's a top 10 receiver already, which is crazy. It's kind of that's been a fun story. It's been a fun story. So I want to go back to the Colts era. This is kind of a similar kind of question. I know the first pass you ever got from Peyton, you dropped. How much did he chew you out for that?
I was actually in practice, so it wasn't as bad, but I felt bad because it was like, wow, this is the first actual pass. And
I'm going to get cut.
And I couldn't see the stripes. I couldn't see the stripes on the ball, so that's why I dropped it.
So the one big reason I asked that is this. So it's one of my favorite stories about Peyton Manning. This wasn't in practice. It was during a game. Is when Austin Collie goes for a one-hand catch. He misses it. And then Peyton tells him, get off the field. Yeah, I'm assuming you might have been on the field when this happened. And then afterwards, he tells Austin, if you try that shit again, you will never touch the field again with me as quarterback.
I can believe that story. I probably wasn't there to see it happen, but I can see Peyton saying that. I can hear Peyton saying that. And, that's Peyton.
Did you ever get chewed out like that before?
I'm sure he yelled. I tried to ignore it as much as possible, but yeah, I'm sure he yelled at me many of times.
Okay. So I've been asking a lot about the movement of the ball, but it's just because this is all kind of relevant because it's stuff in the past, but Peyton has said the wobbly pass this perfect spiral pass is a lot more overrated. As long as the ball gets there, that's all that matters. As a receiver, that's not true, is it?
That's not true at all. We love the spiral pass. It's easier to catch because it fits form. There's a sign, there's a spin on the ball that is kind of when it's wobbly, your fingers are highly likely to get jammed.
So now next two questions. So I'm going to ask your favorite quarterback for the spiral and wobble. So you're allowed to give real answers. You can give two quarterbacks love. So who threw your favorite wobble pass?
Peyton.
And who threw your favorite spiral?
RG3 threw a good wobble pass too as well. Curtis Painter threw an amazing spiral ball.
Really?
Curtis Painter. You can check it out on film. Curtis Painter threw a very, very good tight spiral. Chris Leak in college threw a great spiral out of UF. The quarterback, he threw a very pretty spiral ball.
Okay. So Curtis Painter showing a little love, name from the blast from the past. Probably the nicest thing that's been said about him here in a while. So God, this is kind of bad now that I'm asking this. I don't want to shit on any quarterback, but were you kind of happy your free agency year was the year it was and not the year after, especially after the Suck for Luck campaign and kind of how bad that season went for the Colts?
To tell you the truth, I can't remember who came after RG3 and Andrew Luck, the quarterbacks after, but I am happy with anytime we get to go into free agency, you're always happy.
No, I meant your year, like in terms of you went from, so like it was Peyton's last year, and then the next year is kind of chaos with Peyton's neck, and it was kind of like I don't know. It was one of those weird situations. You got the bag, you went to Washington, and like this is one of the things where everywhere you've gone, you've been a part of greatness. And like, let's start with Mount Union. Like, I don't know if everyone knows this, Nick Sirianni, Matt Campbell, coach of Iowa State, and then current coach of Toledo, Jason Candle. And then at Washington, you have McVay, LaFleur, and Shanahan. Everywhere you go, there's greatness. So how does it feel knowing that you have a future $1 billion CEO working for you at Speed Compression?
Who's the future $1 billion CEO?
Yeah, which one is it?
Oh man, it's interesting because we did have a great history. We tried to do well because we all had the same goals at all the places at Mount Union, Washington. Great players get around each other. We want to go to the highest level. Great coaches. They were former players, and they understand the magnitude of the situation and environment that we're in. That winning is what keeps us around. So they all had the same mindset as I did. So it was easy to gel, and that's what I'm continuing to do with my other entrepreneur skills as well as golf skills.
So so I kind of want to ask about Shanahan because I know he brought you to Washington, correct? And then he brought you to San Francisco, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes.
Why do you love him so much? Like, I'm not like as in a bad way. I'm just like curious. Like, what is it?
Coach Shanahan is a former wide receiver.
Oh,
he's a former wide
there
receiver.
It is. There
he always shows his University of Texas highlights in preseason every year. You got to show love, and receivers speak the same language because we go hard. We know that we are a big part of the offense. We kind of set the tone for the day, and that's what was my job. And Coach Shannon understood that, and I enjoyed doing it because I enjoyed playing football.
Okay. So let's go back to the socks. I want to ask about the socks. I've never worn compression socks. I never got to that level where they would give you compression socks. I double sock. I think that's more comfortable, and I just feel perform better. I don't know. That's nothing. I don't think there's any evidence behind that. But tell me about the compression socks. What's the big difference here?
Our big difference is the quality. We definitely specialize in making it comfortable for anybody that uses them. I had to wear them when I played football. I got injured in Washington. It was my first game, and I had a plantar plate tear in my foot, and I needed to do anything to get back on the field. And they're like, hey, you have to wear compression socks so that overnight your blood flows so it can help the healing. I was like, okay, cool, no problem. Some were good, some weren't bad. I just wasn't happy with it. And then later on, I go to San Francisco. I have a knee surgery. And they're like, hey, you need to wear compression socks so that you don't receive blood clots. And if you get blood clots, you can die. I was like, no, I'm definitely going to find some compression socks to wear. Couldn't find any. And then I finally decided to put my own research in and try to find quality compression socks. Wherever it was at, I had to find it because I needed it. I couldn't suffer from blood clot. I did not want that to happen. So I decided to create my own brand, create my own company. The compression socks is the first product of our Speed 8 compression brand, but it's something that I'm a part of, and I want to make that decision right and get the right product and then move on to the next products.
You said it's your first product. What else are you guys looking at? Trying to do compression shorts,
compression sleeve. elbow sleeves, knee sleeves, ankle, a lot of different kind of compression gear that us athletes or weekend warriors or sports fans wear.
Was your injury at FedEx Field in Washington?
No, it was in New Orleans.
Okay.
Superdome.
I thought they claimed another victim there. I wanted to make sure.
I've had injuries at FedEx Field.
Well, I assume so. At some point, you had to get hurt there. It's kind of like a rite of passage of being a Washington football player. Speaking of, do you think they should keep the Washington football team, or do you think they should change it to one of these new names? Because I like the Washington football team. I know it's not what they're going with, but I kind of like it.
You get used to it, and then it's time for a change. I enjoyed the Washington Redskins name, but I didn't know it was offensive to certain people. It makes sense, but I am going to be a part of the new naming when they present it on February 2nd. I don't know the new name yet, but I'm interested to hear it, and then to see how it flows with the with the rest of the year.
So you're gonna have like a live reaction. It's kind of what you're saying.
Live reaction. Yes. I might be on Instagram Live or Facebook Live.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously you spent, like you said this in the past, like your life is like kind of like in the thirds. You had the first third with the Colts, then you had your next third as learn from Reggie, Marvin, all that. Then you had your second term as a veteran, part of the Washington football team, Washington Redskins. Then you had your third with the San Francisco 49ers. If you had to go back and relive one of those thirds, which one would you go back and relive?
Indianapolis. We won a lot in Indy. I learned a lot. It was my introduction to the NFL. Had Hall of Famers in front of me. It was literally every day was just learning from Peyton, learning from Reggie, or learning from Marvin, Dallas, Jeff Saturday, Joseph Adai. Like, it was a lot of guys that was just to look up to and be like, all right, these guys have done it at the highest level, won Super Bowls, been in the playoffs every year. So this is a great learning place for your career. And I took full advantage of it.
As a Colts fan, I love that answer, and I'm very happy with that answer.
we won a lot in Indy.
Yeah, I know.
Winning solves everything. So it was a great time.
Did anything hurt worse than that Super Bowl loss?
Shoot, that was tough. That was tough.
Had to be tough. That was a tough.
Yeah,
one.
It was tough.
That was a tough one. That onside. What was on the sidelines? And they kicked that onside kick to open up the second half. Like, what's kind of like what's going on the sidelines when that happens?
We're hoping that we got the ball back. It was a surprise to everybody. We're just hoping that we got the ball back. We're hoping that the ball went out of bounds. That was one of the two things. They're like, because nobody expected it, especially the guys on the front line. So, we were just like, hopefully it went out of bounds. Hopefully we got a short field to, score and then, put it out of reach even more. But, we didn't play well enough that day.
Just wasn't meant to be. But how cool was it though to catch a touchdown though?
It is the highest moment of my career. It was in Miami. It was at home. My family was there. It was great. It was a great time. I didn't realize it when I was in the game, but looking back at it, it was like, hey man, you did score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. And it was the first touchdown. So that's fun.
Exactly. You can live that forever. Like I scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl in my hometown. Like
exactly. You can't take it away from you.
No, could never take it. So okay. So here's this then. So you led the NFL interceptions in 2013. What felt better, that or the touchdown catch?
Well, the touchdown catch was just one moment. The NFL, season was all year. The season wasn't as great as we wanted it to be, but it was cool to do something over a long period of time instead of just one game.
Okay. And so I want to go to Mount Union a little bit. And this is something I'm kind of curious. Like, at what point in your career at Mount Union did you realize you had a chance to make it to the NFL? Because I know, like, you go D3, you're probably not thinking the first couple of years, like, oh, I'm going to go to the NFL. Like, this is 100% going to happen.
Coming out of high school, we always wanted to go to the NFL, and if we were on the right team and things kind of fell in place, because there's a rule in the NFL and football, they're saying if you make plays, they'll find you, and it's very true. But the end of my junior year was when I thought I had a chance because the St. Louis Rams sent out the scout and I had to run the 40-yard dash for them. So I was like, okay, I'm on the radar at least. They're sending a scout, so that's better than nothing. So I know my senior year we're going to win and do well. I just have to obviously get the stats and to do well. But that's when I saw I had an opportunity. And then my senior year went as good as we thought it would go, but I didn't play as well because the team, we were just winning by a lot. So that was another moment where more scouts came to our game because they were going to Ohio State games, and then they'll just come to Alliance, Ohio to watch me play or see the film. And I was like, okay, there's some buzz, but nothing's set in stone that, yeah, you're going to make the NFL, get drafted and go play 11 years.
Yeah, kind of crazy, isn't it? Kind of go
Yeah,
D3. You
like,
don't really know. And then junior year, all of a sudden, like, hey, dude, you're fine. You might make it to the NFL. Like, oh shit, okay.
You still hope. You're like, I hope, like, because things in football just changes daily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It also helps. It's a passing league too. That's definitely got to help too. But one of those things. 100%. It's got to be those, when you're like up in those games for like blowing these teams out. You got to be a part of. You're like, dude, I wish these were a little closer so we could like actually throw the ball and I can get some more stats.
And
get more
in college, for playing with Mount Union, I kind of expected, because there's literally a different level of competition at D3. But I was blessed to go to Indianapolis. That was a passing team, so that was what kind of made it perfect for a receiver like myself in a lower division or a lower round that got drafted. They're gonna throw the ball. All you have to do is catch the ball and make plays. So it kind of went hand in hand, and it was like the perfect thing for me.
So Mount Union is a military school, correct?
Mount Union is
you went to a military school. When did you go to a military school?
I went to Norwich University my first year out of high school. That was a military school in Vermont, and they recruited me out of West Palm Beach, and then I transferred to Mount Union.
Okay, I remember. I heard you went to a military school. I was trying to figure out which one it was. I thought I figured it out. I was like, did you have to do all the military stuff then when you were at Norwich?
Nah, not at all. Those guys have to wake up super early for PT, and they have to still go to practice. That's a whole nother level of fitness and craziness.
No. So you didn't have to do any of that. Okay, that's good. That's good.
I was a regular civilian.
I always wonder how it works with guys who play for like Army or like Navy or any of those other schools.
They have to do. Yeah, they have to do. They might have to do extra. Those guys that play football for Army and Navy, and then they have to do their own PT. I give them much respect.
Yeah, that is respect. That's a lot of that. That's a lot of like sweat and
they have to do the schoolwork. And they have to do their schoolwork. They have to wake up early. They have a lot of commitments.
Hey, you know what? They defend our country, so that's
no.
Probably,
it works out well.
It works. It works.
They have a level of discipline that I'm impressed by, and I'm like, okay, because they're literally doing it for 4 years. It's not necessarily just 1 year. They literally are working out for 4 years during the season, off season. It's intense. It's much respect.
It is intense. Do you have any of your old highlight tape? Do you have any VHS tape that you sent to any of the schools? Do you have any?
I don't have them in my possession, but I did send my Norwich highlight tape, VHS tape, to Mount Union, Jason Campbell and Larry Karras when I was trying to transfer there.
So they have it.
They might, but they might. But I did switch it all over to YouTube. But I don't know. But it was on VHS, so it was hard to get a VHS on YouTube back then.
Yeah, it was hard. There was like you had to get like this like 100 like I don't know how much expensive like machine just like to get it like download into there. It was not a fun experience. That was these kids these days don't understand.
Do not understand how hard it is to make a highlight tape.
No, it's a lot easier now. Just go on Huddle and just upload all your highlights, and it's that. And
easy. They make it for you, and they add music and all.
Yours is just silent, probably just people in the stands and
just the plays. Yeah.
So I have a couple of just kind of off the beat kind of things that really have no flow whatsoever in any of the conversation. And then after that, this kid who hasn't said a word yet, he's going to say something. So, cool. The first thing was I was watching your thing on Good Morning Football. They talked about this after dark rated R Pierre. Was it just like F-bombs or something? Or is it like, care to explain why they said it was like the best interview off camera?
I think it was up there with D'Angelo Hall, and we were just talking football, locker room talk.
Yep. That explains it.
D'Angelo played DB and I played receiver, and we had to go against each other, in practice and as well in games. So, when it's in game, it's a different light switch.
Yes. Who's the quarterback that oh God, I don't want to say you look forward to playing, but was there a guy you're like, I'm going to cook this guy?
Let me see what was the question? Who
would you like? Who's a guy like you saw the line, you saw who you were playing. You're like, oh, this guy plays corner. Put me on him. I'm going to dust him. I'm going to get by him every time.
I felt like that about all of them, tell you the truth. We, especially when we're in Indy, where we threw the ball because DBs didn't know how to play Peyton. They didn't know how to play. They're like man-to-man. We know if you're in man-to-man. If we're in zone, Peyton's going to pick the zone apart. Like, they know we're going to throw the ball. We know we're going to throw the ball. So they have, it's 2 against 1. when we were in India, any DB were like, they were just playing nervous, which made sense.
That makes sense because you know what they don't know what you're doing. You know what you're doing, but like you just run to your spot.
And
you're
we're
going
to throw the ball. And we're going to throw the ball. That's not a secret.
No, that's not a secret. Is it true you bowled a 299?
Yes, I did. I did. I actually enjoyed bowling a lot. I gave up bowling actually for golf though. So bowling is not as entertaining, or it gets mundane after a while. But golf drives me up a wall a lot more than bowling.
Yes.
But I do wish I had the 300 instead of. But 299 is pretty cool too.
I don't know. I think 299 is kind of cooler. It makes it seem like I don't know. I was this close, but I wasn't too much of a try hard. So I was there, but I wasn't there. If I wanted it, I could get it. It kind of go with that. Right?
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it, and I actually got it on video too. So,
oh, there we go. All right, last question.
A little bit of proof,
because you need the proof. You say 299, you gotta have the proof.
Yes.
This is my last one. Have you ever seen Kirk Cousins grill meat?
Grilled what?
Grill like meat, like steaks, burgers, things like that. Have you ever seen him?
I have not. I have not seen him.
I might offend you here. He puts like aluminum foil down and then cooks it that way. He doesn't let the grill speak.
Hey, I'm not a kitchen person, so I can't cook. I can survive, but I can't cook, or I'm not a chef at all.
That makes sense. All right. But don't you own a pizza? Don't you own a pizza restaurant?
I had a Spinfire Pizza. We had a restaurant. I still wasn't in a good cook.
Okay. All right. So as I said, this kid here hasn't said a word. This is my intern, Harry. He's going to ask you, this is a game. So it's like a 5-level game. If you've ever wanted to be disrespectful to a reporter, this is your opportunity. He's going to ask you 5 questions. If you like the question, we move on to another one. If you don't like the question, you have to tell him you don't like it, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
All right.
All right.
Real nice and easy. Kind of off the beaten path questions here. So first of all, what was it like playing in NFC East divisional rival games, like as an away player? Like I'm a diehard Eagles fan, so I kind of want to know what it was like going into the Link, going into Jerry World, going into MetLife as a rival.
Actually, it is kind of fun. The fans love their teams. The big city teams, their fans are diehard. It is actually fun going into Dallas Stadium, going into Philadelphia. Giants is not as hectic as Philly and Dallas, but their fans are supporting them. But it is fun, like those Sunday night games against Dallas, those night games against Philadelphia, where the fans are just couldn't wait for the game to start, to just start yelling at the opposing team. And it is a great environment to be in for NFL, because you don't get that in every NFL stadium. But on the NFC East, you do get, like a college atmosphere.
Oh. I know you don't get that in the AFC South. I know you don't get that in the AFC.
Yeah,
South.
Like Jacksonville, the fans don't really care in Jacksonville.
Yeah. No. And there's
Tennessee fans are, they're not, they're happy, but they're not, like Houston get loud when they do like the whiteout, when they do certain events, they make it, a crazy environment. But Dallas week is always crazy. Philly week is always crazy. The Giants are depending on how well they are, but their Giants fans always come down to DC to, try to, take over.
It's not as historical. A lot of newer franchises in the South compared to the East, where it's all like old school NFL rivalries. And it's like, it has a lot of history behind it.
It's
anyway.
Much different vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. Much different vibe.
All right. Awesome. Good to go to the next one. So what's your favorite golf course that you've played on? Like, I'm sure you've traveled around to a bunch of different places.
That's a good one. Favorite golf course. There is a par 3 golf course in Palm Beach. It's right on the ocean that I do love.
Ooh.
I've been to the Turnberry in Aventura. I really love that one. That's a very nice one. I've been to Miami Beach Golf Club in Miami. I enjoy that one. But the Palm Beach par 3 is on the ocean, so it's hard to have a bad view on that golf course.
Yeah, that's just automatic. You're on the beach. It's like, come on. Now. It's the perfect atmosphere for that kind of thing.
Perfect.
How many balls did you hit into the ocean that you're like, that's gone?
I have too many.
We can all relate to that one.
Yeah. All right, awesome. So while you were in Indianapolis, were there like any places in the city that you really just love to go, like down on Broad Ripple or anywhere in that area?
Mass Ave.
Oh man, when I lived in Indianapolis, there wasn't much activities going on. There was Broadway, whatever places, but those places changed names. We did enjoy going to Harry and Izzy's a lot because it was a restaurant right next to my place, and they had great food. St. Elmo's was always packed, and I always enjoyed going to PF Chang's and Roof Chris. And after the game, we literally go from the stadium because it's all downtown straight to the restaurant, and they take great care of us. But Harry and Izzy's, I think I spent the most time there at Harry and Izzy's in Indy.
That's like the branch off of Elmo's.
St. Elmo's,
fantastic.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Very, very good food. We went there this year and actually, enjoyed the same environment, same great food.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen it in the Indianapolis airport, and I've always been like so close to trying it, but it's like
it's worth it.
I always got
it's worth it. It's worth
next time I get there.
Get the shrimp cocktail. Sure. Get the shrimp cocktail.
Shrimp cocktail.
Good to know.
Yes, so good. It's so good.
All right, awesome. So while you were in Indy as well, did you ever go down to Bloomington for like a Hoosiers basketball game, or like up to Lafayette for a Boilermaker game or something like that? Or
I actually did not go for like a basketball. I've been to Bloomington to the IU campus. I've been to West Lafayette to Purdue's campus, but not for an actual football game or basketball game, which I wish I would have known more about when I was in Indy, but I have been on those campuses and I can see the school spirit, the love for the team, and the support that they have. So I regret not going to an actual basketball game or to a night game in West Lafayette, but I have been to those cities.
Let's piss off some people. Which campus did you like better, IU or Purdue?
Oh, that's a good question. When I went to West Lafayette, I actually went for a track meet. So I spent more time, I guess, off campus. I think it's near the campus, but I spent more time on IU's campus. I had an actual whole event on IU's campus. So I did get to see, the campus, but I heard good things about both campuses. But IU, I heard this party school.
Yeah, that's the right answer.
That is the right answer.
That is the right answer.
All right. This is number 5, correct? Yep. All right, number 5.
All right, you got one former team left in the playoffs. Just real simple. Who do you think's going all the way this year?
One former team.
It's
hard to go. It's hard to go against Kansas City, man.
It is.
It's what they pull off in 13 seconds. Is like, all right, does anybody have a chance? That's ridiculous. Just having Mahomes, Tyreek, Travis. Man, it's. Oh, so my mom's calling me. But
Mama Garcon.
Right. But yeah, it's hard to go against Kansas City.
Yeah, it's hard to go against Kansas City.
You see 13 seconds on the clock, and you're like, no way, right? And they just pull it out of the hat. Like, it's ridiculous.
The joke's always like 13 seconds, too much time for Patrick Mahomes, thinking like there's no way he's actually going to do it. And then that is too much time for Patrick Mahomes. It's nuts.
But you got to talk to the defensive coordinator, like, hey, man, like, what?
Yeah.
Anything could have been better than what we did.
Yeah.
Honestly, though.
You saw Josh Allen on that sideline just looking pissed off as hell. And it's like,
he can't.
What can you do?
But he played very, very well. Very well.
They're Buffalo's fine. They got a great quarterback.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, you got to cheer for. I mean, even though like. I agree, Chiefs. I'm cheering for the Stafford and the Rams just because, I think that's a great story. But it's whatever. Anyway, so where can we find the socks? Obviously, you got the website. Where else? What are some other retailers we can find the socks?
Amazon. That's our place, our number one place of selling. But we're working on getting into Walmart around the country. But Amazon is where we're at. myspeed8compression.com, our website, and we're looking to grow. It's fun. It's exciting, and I'm learning a lot as this grows.
All right, you got a customer. I'll get some. I'll buy some. I'll buy some.
And I need the feedback. Send me the feedback, and we'll make something happen.
I'll let you know. I'll give him my feedback. All right. So, any last word before we sign off on this?
Not much. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the support, and looking forward to hearing from you guys more.
All right.
Thanks
Sounds
for coming on.
Man. Appreciate you for coming on. So for Pierre, see y'all in a second. That was a great interview with Pierre. But first and foremost, I want to thank the sponsor of the show, Living.Fit. Living.Fit is a health and wellness company that help you achieve all your fitness goals, from building muscle, losing fat, or just to try something new. Not only are there programs, but we also can help with your nutrition, and they can build out your home gym. And for all my personal trainers out there looking to get certified in kettlebells or battle rope movements, we're the place to be. So make sure you go visit the website and download the app living.fit today. Now back here is Pat Boylan. We are joined by a family friend of mine. He is a Pacers sideline reporter and play-by-play every now and then for the radio. He also is a play-by-play analyst for the Indiana Fever. It is Pat Boylan. Pat, I gotta apologize first off. There's like an animal in my house, like in the walls. I'm like trying to figure out what this thing is. I have no idea what it is.
You're good, man. There's an animal in my house. It's a dog. In the next 30 minutes or whatever, you'll probably hear her bark. She doesn't do too well with noises. So you're not the only one with animals that are going to make this recording, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, well, you might, like, I have my dog too, but there's this, like, I don't know what it is. It doesn't sound like a rat. It doesn't sound like a mouse. I think it's like, so we had a squirrel in our basement once. And I think this thing is bigger than the squirrel. It sounds like a raccoon. Like, that's how big this thing sounds.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying if it makes its way into your place. So hopefully there's no, like, holes that are big enough for whatever that thing is. As long as it's making noises, maybe a little annoying, but at least it's not going to cause any major issues.
I hope not. So, like, I just have all the little holes that where it can get to me right now all covered up. So, like, I won't be disturbed, hopefully. But I could hear this thing just, like, scratching the walls and stuff. Like, I thought I heard it last night. And then this morning it got really bad. And I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. My dog's going crazy trying to find it. It's chaos.
Yeah, I guess that could be problematic if you're trying to sleep.
Yeah, a little bit. But I didn't have too much of an issue with it. Anyway, though, so how was last night? How was calling the game last night for the Pacers? It was just a great game for them, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, last night, as of recording this here, Wednesday night was obviously a tough one. The Pacers allowed a franchise record in points, so it's been a little bit of a challenging year. They've been dealing with a ton of injuries. Everybody got hit by COVID, but like when everybody else got hit by COVID was not really when the Pacers got hit by COVID. Then they got hit by COVID when everybody else had kind of recovered from COVID. So they've been sort of off cycle in that, unfortunately. And Rick Carlisle has come in, who's one of the handful of best coaches I think to ever do it. I think long term that will be a major good get for the Pacers. But anytime you make a coaching change, I think that can be a little challenging. And so I think when you add all those things up together, and unfortunately from the Pacers perspective, they struggle to close out games. Their point differential and all these different analytics you can get into are suggest that the team has a much better record than they do because they've struggled down the stretch. So all of that has kind of added up into what's been certainly, I think, a frustrating season so far, but we're only just past the midway point of it too.
So this kind of my thing is like we're kind of it feels as if we've hit this kind of point where you have to kind of decide, do we want to keep going all in, or is it time to kind of build around the young core? And I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of getting bored with the team we've had in the past, but ever since I've started watching the young guys, it feels like the team's more fun to watch, even though they lost by like 30 points last night and allowed 158 points. I think watching these young guys is a lot of fun, and I think that's kind of a change. Kind of feels like we're a little overdue with that. We've kind of made the playoffs, faltered, things like that. Does it feel like the Pacers are starting to focus more on the young talent, or do you think they're going to do a Pacers thing potentially and trade their first round pick and go all in with another player?
Well, I don't speak for the front office, and to be honest, with jobs like the ones we have, I tell people this all the time. I know the thing that people often want to talk about the most is trade deadline, and then probably followed by free agency, and then probably followed that by the draft. And unfortunately, those are like the three things in which people in my position oftentimes know next to nothing, if not nothing about. I've got Shams and Woj notifications on my phone, and that's how we find out about, sometimes our PR department will inform us like, hey, we're making, this move around the fringes kind of thing, just heads up, this release is coming. But typically the way the NBA works is the Wojs and the Shams of the world, they outscoop the PR staffs of the world when this stuff happens, because there's agents and there's players, and it's impossible to keep things tightly sealed. So to go back to your question, first of all, this is a topic that I just frankly don't know a ton about in terms of the direction the Pacers are going to go, because I'm not a part of the front office. That's not necessarily my job. I think lately, though, they've kind of been forced into this, right? Like there have been so many injuries. Sabonis has been out. Turner's been out. Brogdon's been out. LeVert missed a good chunk. Warren hopefully will be coming back soon, TJ Warren, but not quite there yet. So you had games in Golden State and in Phoenix, for example, where you didn't have a single one of your projected starting five. So it's kind of forced at least a temporary youth movement. And I think one thing that's important to note is you've got a team that, while, the Pacers haven't drafted in the top 10, more than I think once or twice in my lifetime, they do have, they're coming off a draft where they do have 2 first-round selections, in Chris Duarte and Isaiah Jackson. So sometimes I think that gets lost in all of this is, look, this team definitely was built to win now. It hasn't, lived up to, I think, the talent level that everybody in the St. Vincent Center and at Gainbridge Fieldhouse feels like they can get to. But it's not like there isn't any youth development happening either. You've got 2 first-round guys. I think Duarte showed right away. He scored 27 points in his first game of his NBA career, and in general has looked really strong. And you're starting to see a little bit more of Isaiah Jackson too, who was that second first-round pick that the Pacers traded back into the first round to get. So I think you've seen a lot of positive steps from those young guys. It's still really early on a lot of them, like Dwayne Washington Jr. and Kiefer Sykes, for example. Those are a couple of guys who were undrafted. So, expectations for those guys, you typically aren't game changers at the NBA level, but every once in a while you can find one. You can pluck an undrafted guy and he becomes a star. So, yeah, I think games like Golden State, I think, where you don't have any of your main guys and you beat a team that's a championship contender, I think give hope for the future. But at the same point, you've got a lot of these guys that right now are injured are coming back or will be coming back in the next week or two. And I think it makes for a pretty interesting decision for Rick Carlisle on how you try to still get a lot of those promising young guys minutes. But also you can't take away a chunk of time from a Domantas Sabonis, for example.
Yeah, because I would say another guy like Goga got drafted. What was it, like a year ago, 2 years ago, or whatever, and he didn't really get a whole lot of playing time. And ever since he's gotten a significant amount of minutes, you're starting to see that potential finally kind of live up and live out. And that's one of the things too, where I think as fans, I think you can attest to this. Kind of in the past, we've been kind of hesitant to play some of our younger players, and we've kind of we got the all-in process. And it's just nice to see we're letting these young guys play, and you're you're seeing them develop, and you're seeing them develop pretty quickly before your eyes. Like I said, Dwayne Washington, Kiefer Sykes. Washington was a guy I loved watching at Ohio State, and you're seeing him put up these he'll put up 20 plus points in these random games, and it seems like you probably found a pretty good, at least a role player potentially. And so it's one of the things. I don't know. I'm excited about the Pacers. That's something that makes me excited about it, but it just feels like we're in not a lull, but it kind of feels like this forever-ending cycle. And I think that's one of those things. I don't know if you guys have picked up. I'm assuming you guys have picked up on it in terms of the fan base. It almost feels like a lull we've had over the past couple handful of years, and it didn't really get helped out by the COVID list, the injuries, and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, man, it's been the last couple of years have certainly been, frustrating from a lot of angles. It seems like this group, first of all, can never get fully healthy.
Never.
Even when they've had small stretches where they've been mostly healthy, you have to remind yourself, even what feels like healthy is still missing T.J. Warren and T.J. McConnell. That said, it was certainly frustrating to have, I think, a couple of teams that felt like they could have gotten out of the first round. You ran into LeBron in there.
Doesn't help.
He was back. I think back to that night, that 2017-2018 team when the Pacers had just traded Paul George and brought in Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis, and everybody predicted them to win 20 games. And they made the playoffs and were the 5 seed. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the Cavaliers that year fell down to the 4. LeBron's always a 1-2 or at worst a 3 seed and fell into the 4. That team was definitely a team that was one of the top 4 teams from a Pacers perspective in the East, but they ran into LeBron in the first round. And then you come back from the pandemic. That team was playing so well, and just getting Victor Oladipo back and the pandemic hit. And then Warren had that huge game. Well, then you run into the Miami Heat, who are on a tear and end up in the NBA Finals. That Cavs team we're talking about end up in the NBA Finals, and you played in first round. That Miami team you played in the first round went on a tear and got to the NBA Finals. So it's just felt like there have been a whirlwind of different things. And so the frustrating thing is so much of this you can't control. And, of the controllables, this year, the thing that really stands out is just how they've struggled in these late game scenarios. And if you look at, the reality is a game like Wednesday night really is a rarity for the Pacers this year. They have been in almost every single game. You can count on one hand the amount of games that have not been within a few possessions late. The Pacers have had a couple of blowouts, and they've had a few games on the other end, like last night. But it's just like all of these games are coming down to the same, stretch in the fourth quarter. And part of it's injuries, part of it's COVID, part of it's just struggling to execute in the game's most important moments. And I think that's been, certainly a frustrating dynamic of the season is regardless of where you fall on all the things that you're talking about, this team definitely is playing at a higher level than their record is, but they're not closing out the games to earn the type of record like they probably feel like where they should.
It's an Indiana thing. So like, you're not an IU basketball fan, are you? Are you a Purdue guy?
I grew up one.
Okay, you grew up.
I grew up one. Yeah, when I was 17 or 18 or whenever you go to college, I went to Ball State and then immediately switched my alliance over. But for, I don't know, not 17 years because you're not literally out of the womb of fan of anything. But I don't know, for 12, 13 years, I was an IU basketball.
We'll consider you part of it then. So like, have you been paying attention to Woodson? You've noticed they kind of fall in that same situation. They'll get up pretty big in the first half. Second half, they blow every lead. The Colts, I know you're aware of this. They get up big in the first half. They blow every single lead. So it's one of those things where I think it's just an Indiana thing. Every team will get up big like in the first half or they'll get these big leads and then they just can't finish. I don't know what it is about Indiana. We just can't finich games. Then like you look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame did the same thing in their bowl game. They also blew like a 20-plus point lead.
I'll say this: I'm a strong believer in coaching and in the long-term ramifications of having good coaching. And while this year's been extremely frustrating for the Pacers, like they got a Hall of Fame coach, and I think we're still waiting to see what Mike Woodson is going to be at IU. But there is no doubt in my mind that dude can flat out coach. Now winning at the college level is a whole lot more than that, and there are things that I don't know. What is his ability to recruit at the college level? I don't follow the college game all that closely because I'm so immersed in the NBA. But there's no doubt in my mind that dude can coach. You don't always see the effects of that year one, but I think it's reasonable to be hopeful, in the Pacers scenario, the IU basketball scenario, that you've got a couple of really good minds in there. And that's not to denigrate by any means, anything Colts. I think, Frank Reich potentially, could be with the Colts for a very long time if they can get over their kind of hump as well. But I will say, as somebody who's neutral now to IU basketball, that I am optimistic for them because of Mike Woodson.
I like that answer. No, the one thing, goddamn, I was about to say something else. Oh, so we were talking about how like LeBron, I feel like the Pacers always ran into LeBron. They'd always make it to the finals. I think whoever the Pacers played I don't know who they play in the past. Usually it's almost always LeBron. That team would always make it to the finals. Like it's one of those things where like we were always haunted by LeBron. The Colts were always haunted by Tom Brady. It's like these things are these Indiana teams. We get haunted by like these players who are potentially all-time greats, and we just can't get out of it. Like the Reggie Miller years too, we were haunted by Michael Jordan. We're just gonna get past Michael Jordan. It's just the most unlucky 100%. Thing in the world.
You look at some of the great Pacers teams and who they've run into, and you're right, from an NBA perspective, you probably ran into the two greatest players of all time during your greatest eras, in Jordan and LeBron. And yeah, Brady's probably the greatest to do it ever also, right? So, I mean, how frustrating in that these teams are so good and they've accomplished so much. But, Knicks fans of the 90s know that MJ thing well, and the Pacers are not the only team that has run into LeBron. If you were, any good at any point in the East over the last 15 years until he went out west to LA, unfortunately, you ran into LeBron. But that's a really frustrating dynamic of when you, kind of consider the Pacers, especially like their peaks as teams. Oh, and by the way, the one time you run into this little gap where pre-LeBron, post-Michael Jordan, Kobe and Shaq.
Yeah.
Right? So okay, we finally are past MJ, and we don't know LeBron yet, and you run into, I don't know, two of the top 10, 15 guys ever do it on the same team, which might even be more challenging than just trying to beat MJ or LeBron by himself. And that, of course, was the 2000s finals. So, yeah, man, that's something that I think Colts fans and Pacers fans who often are the same person can commiserate with, is just I don't know if it's bad luck on timing or what it is, but man, when you consider MJ, Shaq, and Kobe and LeBron, I mean, that's just a remarkably tough group to get over. And then, basically during that whole time, Tom Brady has been Tom Brady.
We can't get away from these all-time greats. And now, like, you even got Giannis in Milwaukee. I mean, it's incredible. We just keep running into these just all-time just like crazy players. But one thing we have in common is I used to work in Indiana Farmers Coliseum, and I know you called some games for the Fever in Indiana Farmers Coliseum. What's it like calling games there? Because I know it's not, it's not up to standards of like Banker's Life and things like. Or Gamebridge. Is that what it's called now? Gamebridge?
Oh, it is Gamebridge, and well, if the bar is Gamebridge, no, it's not Gamebridge. Gamebridge is a fantastic building, but I will say this: we are so lucky in this state, but especially this city. Right now, for example, the Fieldhouse every summer, this will be the third round of it coming up, will undergo a round of renovation.
Yeah.
So from the Fever's perspective, where they normally play, of course, at the Fieldhouse, they've had to move around a little bit. And one of those years was in the pandemic where they were playing down in Florida, kind of like the NBA. So that ended up sort of being a wash anyway. They weren't going to play at home, even if the building was there because of the pandemic. But how lucky are we? And we were just experiencing this 11 months ago or whatever it was with the NCAA tournament. Like how many great facilities we have. I live downtown. I mean, a bike's ride away. You've got, of course, the Fieldhouse, which in my opinion is the best basketball arena in the country. A little biased, but the Fieldhouse has really withstood. You got Hinkle Fieldhouse right down the way, which is historic as just about any basketball building, and they've done a terrific renovation over there. You've got the Coliseum, and you've got a football stadium like Lucas Oil, which is capable of hosting massive events if you need it. This isn't what you're asking. The Fever won't be playing at Lucas Oil, but the Farmers Coliseum, once it has undergone its renovation, it's a really nice basketball arena to play in, and especially for a team like the Fever. In some ways, I appreciate how that building can actually help provide, I think, a better home court advantage because you're not getting 17,000 people there like you are often for the Pacers. But that building, it's a nice arena. I'm looking forward, no doubt, to getting back to the Fieldhouse. But if you don't have it available to be playing at the Farmers Coliseum this year, to be playing at Hinkle, I mean, we've got, especially for a city this size, we've got a treasure trove of great arenas. And then when you start including what the tournament did, Assembly Hall, Mackey Arena. I went to Ball State for a MAC-sized school. Worthen Arena in Muncie's terrific. I think it's the Rose Holman Center where Indiana State is. I mean, there are numerous quality basketball arenas, and so many of them are a stone's throw from downtown Indianapolis.
We grow basketball here, or whatever the phrase is this year. So I want to be doing justice as a Pacers fan if I didn't ask. I know you had Lance Stevenson on the podcast. Are they going to give him are they going to finally give him just a big contract? Just make him a lifer? Just give him here's a lifetime contract. Just stay forever.
I don't think lifetime contracts exist, but he's a really interesting one to watch. I know if the circumstances fit that the team is very interested in bringing him at least along for the rest of the year. So basically what he did, he originally joined the team only because of COVID. And it's fascinating to think, would this have happened? And it very well may have happened, but I just don't know. Would this have happened this year with Lance if it weren't for COVID? Because the only reason the Pacers were able to bring on Lance in the first place is because they had so many guys get COVID at the same time that the league has a rule in place where they allow you to sign more players than you typically are allowed to sign if you have so many guys out. It's called the hardship exception. And so he signed a 10-day on the hardship exception, signed a second 10-day that lasted a day or two, and then they started getting guys back from COVID. Well, then you can sign a guy to a real 10-day contract, and you're allowed to do 2 of those before you have to make a call. So Lance is past 10-day contract number 1. As we're talking, he's on 10-day contract number 2. And then they've got to make a call. And right now there is a open full-time roster spot. The Pacers have 14 of their 15 roster spots full. So they could, if they choose, slide him right in there. But there's also kind of an interesting dynamic in play there. And again, this starts to get to the area of where my knowledge hits an end because I don't know what the front office is thinking. But you've got the trade deadline coming up too, and having an empty roster spot around the trade deadline is always a benefit. It allows you to be more flexible in discussions, and if you were to do a 2-for-1 trade, that becomes available. I remember a couple of years ago, the Pacers made a trade where they basically traded for, I believe it was Nick Stauskas, and immediately waived him. They weren't ever planning on keeping him, but by doing that trade, they got a second-round pick in the deal too. And just having that open roster spot and having a little cap space, they basically got a free second-round pick out of it. So Stevenson's second 10-day is going to come up before the end of the trading deadline, which then makes it an interesting call. Do you slide him over into that final spot? Do you try to hold on to that open roster spot for another week or so if you're still talking trades? It'll be interesting to watch. I'm not sure. And I think Stevenson, for the most part, has shown that he's worthy of that roster decision. But I think it's something intriguing to watch here over the next week or so.
I want to say that he's brought an energy that we haven't I feel like the team hasn't had like all year. It's just like, it's undescribable. Like, he's literally superhero. He's literally Superman. He puts on the jersey and he just becomes Superman. It's one of the most interesting stories in the NBA. It's just the fact that doesn't matter where he goes, he comes back to Indiana and he just reverts back to what he was in like 2012, 2013 of just dynamic Lance.
It's so true. Every time he checks into the game, we kind of have a running joke now on the radio broadcast that we don't even have to announce him checking in when it's a home game because the crowd is so loud. And it's funny because if Mark Boyle's talking about something else and you're just listening and he's not yet mentioning that Stevenson has checked into the game, all of a sudden you start hearing a roar of the crowd. And I'm imagining somebody listening going, what in the world is the crowd cheering about? And it's just Lance coming into the game in the middle of the second quarter of a 3-point game. It's not like he hasn't even done anything yet. The level of that guy's fandom here is fascinating. And I was having this debate with a couple of coworkers. Like, the Pacers have had some really good basketball players, especially over the last 20, 25 years. Certainly players that are more talented than Lance Stevenson. But if you start compiling a list of where Lance ranks among the fan favorites, it's absurd how high he would rank and amongst the names he would be in, right? Like, you've had Paul George, Victor Oladipo, Domantas Sabonis. All these guys are all-stars. Reggie Miller, Jermaine O'Neal,
Granger,
Danny Granger, and yet Lance is probably, Roy Hibbert was an all-star for a year. Rick Smits. Lance is probably right up there with just about anybody not named Reggie Miller, right? And so it's a fascinating dynamic for a guy that's just been off and on with the team and, don't get me wrong, he's had some really good on-the-floor moments. The 20 points in the first game he was back in Indianapolis, I mean, if I'm lucky enough to do this until I'm old and choose to retire, I think that first quarter might be one of the handful of memories that will always stick out to me. That was so remarkable. And it was like you were watching an NBA Finals playoff game with the energy in the arena, and you were scripting something that Hollywood would reject because it was too unbelievable. I mean, the guy comes back, and in his very first game back, scores the most points off the bench in the first quarter in the history of the league. This guy was out of the NBA 2 weeks ago. I mean, it's just absurd. But it was a great moment. Certainly the fans who have stuck with us in what's been a challenging year. As much as anything, I felt so good for them to at least, have that moment, to have that much excitement in the middle of the year. And who knows? I thought he played pretty well last night, played pretty well on the end of the road trip there. I know he wants to be around, and I think if the front office can make it work, that they're certainly open to that idea.
So here, I want him to be a Pacer, but another part of me kind of hopes like we let him go again and then bring him back again next year, and just kind of keep doing this thing where at the middle of every season is bring back Lance.
Like maybe he has to like actually come back to get those like superpowers or something.
He has to leave the league. He just like saves up all of his energy for like the final like 2 months of the year every single time, every season.
The second time, I guess the first time they brought him back, his second stint with the Pacers, that team was on basically its last lifeline for the season. I remember it so vividly. It would have been the 16-17 season, and that team was just about to miss the playoffs. And I think they needed to go 5-0 or 6-0 down the stretch to make the playoffs. And Lance came in and lost the first game when he was there, but it was against the Cavs and it was against LeBron, and it went to, I think, double overtime. And then I think they needed to win 5 straight games to make the playoffs. And this team that had not strung together a winning streak all season long wins 5 games, makes the playoffs, and at least had an interesting playoff series with the Cavs. They were swept, but every single game was down to the final possession, so they were at least competitive in the playoff games for a team that was about to miss the playoffs. So, I mean, yeah, maybe there's something to him like coming in mid-season and like sweeping the team off their feet or something. But it's a fascinating phenomenon. You know, you have all these people that are paid to dive into the numbers and to find these little advantages and statistics and analytics and all this stuff. And then you have something like this that's just impossible to describe by anything tangible. But it's why we love sports, right?
Yeah, that's like, it's when you think about it, it's like people say some things are bigger than sports. Like, this is literally some things are bigger than sports, and it's Lance Stevenson in Indianapolis. It just doesn't. There's no one who can comprehend what goes on every time. So my intern here, he's from Philly. I don't think he's ever had anything. Well, definitely hasn't had anything like Lance Stevenson. What? You can speak, Harrison. You can speak. You're allowed to speak right now.
I mean, yeah. I think the closest thing we could possibly have to Lance Stevenson would be Nick Foles.
Oh, that's true.
Like,
that's true.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah, he left, he came back and won us the Super Bowl and played like a legend during the whole time. So
that is true. That is true.
I think Nick Foles would be the closest thing.
He actually won them a championship. Lance never won us a championship, but we all.
Yeah.
To be fair, Nick Foles. I was going to say Nick Foles didn't have to go through the GOAT, but he did go through one of the best of all time in Brady. So I guess he's got a one up on Lance.
Yeah, that's very
Lance
true.
has to go out there and beat I guess Giannis now in like the second or third round or whatever. And get to LeBron, but anyway, all right.
I can see it happen.
I don't see that.
Why
I
not?
don't see that. Not this year. Maybe next year. Maybe next year. So Harry's here. So what we do in the show is I give him 5 questions, and so I know you're a reporter. You ask a bunch of different questions. I'll let Harry ask 5 questions. If you like the question, we move on to the next. But this is where if you've ever heard someone ask a stupid question, like that's a terrible question, you can tell them to fuck off. So if you don't like the question, we stop. He's done talking.
Let me preface this by saying that 99% of the work that I do from a broadcast realm is live or recorded to be live. And that word that you previously used that I refuse to even utter will never come into the lexicon either. That's not how it works.
You don't have to tell them to actually do that. You just say, all right, that's a bad question. That's all. Right. You don't actually say that one. I know those words. You can't say those words. I can say those words though.
This is your thing. You can do whatever you want, but that's not
yeah.
Part of this.
You can't say those words. I can say those words. Anyway, Harry, let's hear those questions.
All right, yeah, let's get this rolling then. So, in your personal opinion, what's the best game you've ever worked during of your stint with the Pacers and the Fever?
The best game I've ever worked. The one that just keeps coming to my mind would be. So I started just for the timeline here for people who don't know. I started in the 2014-2015 season. I was hired about a month after Paul George broke his leg in that USA Olympic game. So my very first year with the Pacers was right off of those Eastern Conference Finals runs and what would end up being kind of an era change. So you're talking 14-15 until right now as we're talking. And so there certainly have been bigger Pacers moments than this, but it was that 17-18 playoffs, the 2018 playoffs, against LeBron and the Cavs. The Pacers went into Cleveland and won game 1, lost game 2, and were back in Indianapolis, and they got down. I don't remember all the specifics, but it was about 20 points, and there was so much energy in the building because they're coming home, a chance to take one from LeBron and the Cavs. And the Pacers and LeBron have so many previous playoff meetings in other eras of these Pacers teams, even just 4 or 5 years ago, but when he was with Miami and Wade and Bosh. But it just brought back all those memories. And in this game, the Pacers start to battle their way back, and then Bojan Bogdanovic just went berserk. Like, he could not miss 3 after 3 after 3. At one point, he had a 4-point play in there. It's the loudest I've heard that arena since I've been working there, at least. And in that moment, I think a lot of people really believe the Pacers might actually be able to take the Cavs out. Like, it's one thing to go steal a game from LeBron, But in a 4-game series or a best of 7 series, first to win 4, like you got to do it 3 more times. So when you get all of a sudden you get win number 2 like that, you start to think maybe it can happen. And if you go back to the time and remember, that actually ended up being LeBron's last year in Cleveland, and there was plenty of talk about that. So there was so much intrigue about the potential of knocking LeBron away from the Cavs and getting, one last shot at him after how many times he beat the Pacers. Unfortunately, we know how that series ends. It went to 7. It was a close game in the 4th in Cleveland. LeBron got the better of the Pacers, but that Bojan Bogdanovic game was spectacular, and it probably jumps out as number 1.
I will say the one thing too about it too was like we didn't win the series, but we did start the conversations of is LeBron going to leave the Cavaliers because they don't have enough talent around him. So we can take pride in that. We can take pride in that one. We kicked him out of the East.
and I'm thankful every single day for that.
You're welcome.
All right, yeah, thank you. So let's move on then. Good to go?
Yeah, we're good to go. We're good to go.
So are there any plays that stick out in your mind as just so spectacular that it makes you forget where you are, forget that you're working, and just react like a fan?
Well, that's an interesting question, because as you take a job like this, like you have to immediately cross a line. I grew up, as Tommy knows, I grew up here. So I grew up a Pacers fan. But the moment you take a job like this, you have to lose some of that fandom, because your job is as a broadcaster and it's to the fan. And don't get me wrong, like having this job, if anything, I want the Pacers to win more now, because I'm literally invested in the team. But not always in the fandom way. And there have been a couple of moments though where your jaw just kind of hits the floor and you don't believe that what you're seeing is happening or whatever. And there have been a couple of those that immediately stand out. I don't know if there's one necessarily more than the other, but to be honest with you, that weeks ago, he was even in Atlanta, which he quickly had Atlanta picked him up before the Pacers did. He didn't really do much in Atlanta, and even in those first 2 road games, he didn't do much for the Pacers. So like that totally came out of nowhere. A couple other, the Bogdanovic one definitely stands out. There was a game against Boston a few years ago. It was the year, I believe, that Oladipo ended up, later injuring his leg and his knee and his quad. But where the Pacers were down like 5 with like 30 seconds left, and they got a bucket. In my career, and sometimes that kind of stuff sticks out, the first stuff that you see, but this is definitely not going to be what you're thinking of. It was against the Celtics, 2015-2016 time, and Jay Crowder was on the Celtics, and there was like a second left in the first half, and the Celtics had to go the length of the floor, and they had the ball out of bounds on the baseline. And so, what do? You just kind of throw the ball to the other end and hope some guy grabs it and tosses it in. It's an extremely low quality type of play. And he throws the ball the length of the floor, and he freaking banked the throw in. Like, so he's
I actually remember this.
Yeah.
This.
He threw it's coming back to mind now.
Football style, was sailing across and banks right. It doesn't count. So literally like a play that had no effect on the game, but it was remarkable. I've never seen anything like that. So those are the first few that stand out to me, I guess.
Well, that was like year 2. You see Jay Crowder just throw a full court shot into the. It's just absurd.
What in the world? And everyone's that doesn't count, right? It's like, no, but
it should count. It should count. If you can do that, that should count.
It should count.
It should count.
It's like is that Jay Crowder down there or Tom Brady? Like, what's going on? Like,
it could be the NBA's version of like a 2-point play, a 2-point conversion or something in the NFL. Like if you need 4 points at the end of a game, you got to have your dude stand on the baseline and throw it 90 feet and into the hoop. And if you can do that, we'll give you 4.
I think that should.
I think the NBA would.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna have some fun rules. I feel like Silver's one of those guys that's kind of they're twinkling with some things. They have some ideas. They want to add some stuff. I think they talked about the 4-point play. They're not going to do that. I don't think though.
No, I don't think so either. But Silver is an ideas guy for sure.
Yeah, he's a big ideas guy. Like the midseason tournament. Real quick, do you like the midseason tournament idea?
At first, I did. I watched it. So the WNBA oftentimes gets to be the league that tries some of this out first, and I actually grew to kind of like it in the WNBA and what they did last year. So, if that ends up happening, initially I didn't love it, but I think I'm starting to get behind it.
Okay. Aside. Okay, Harry, number 3.
Awesome. 3. Yep. Do you have any extremely bold predictions for the trade deadline? Because that's approaching sooner than
doesn't have to be the Pacers. Doesn't have to be the Pacers.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be the Pacers, just in general. Yeah.
I don't think I have any bold predictions. If I had to guess, I would guess Simmons does not get traded at the deadline. I think that's likely to be an off-season move. I think Morey's been pretty stubborn with it so far. So my guess is 6 days. If there's a team that seems destined to do something, to me, it's Sacramento. They got too much talent over there to be, where they are in the standings. I mean, Fox, Halliburton, Mitchell,
Hield.
Bagley. They've been drafting high for a while, and unfortunately, it's just like not working there. So they've also got, potentially a high draft pick in there. So it just seems like if there's a team destined to make a trade, it's Sacramento. So that's not a bold pick, but if you had to ask me to pick a team that I thought you are most likely to see their name pop up on a Woj bomb between now and February 10th or whatever it is, I'll pick Sacramento.
Sacramento, that's probably like a 99% chance because there's at this point, I think they're just trying to blow it up kind of and build around the younger guys to the young guys.
Yeah. There's so many different ways they could go. Like if they wanted to move Fox around, if they wanted to move their pick to try to get something to do a more win now move. That's a franchise that, you'll hear people all the time that are like, hey, blow it up, rebuild, tank, all of those words. And I get it. And it definitely can work. But like when you get stuck in the purgatory that Sacramento's stuck in, it's horrible. So, Minnesota's maybe just starting to get out of something similar there, but that's a situation where that's literally the worst thing that you can be in the NBA is this type of team that has some talent, not enough to make the playoffs, too much to get the number 1 pick. And that's, kind of where Sacramento finds themselves. So I think they make a move at the deadline, but which direction, I don't know. Like I could see them trying to go all out and get another big player and try to make this group work now, or they could say, look, we can get a lot for Fox. And we got some young players that we like, and we got a high draft pick coming up, and we could try that way too.
Absolutely. I seriously wouldn't be shocked if they popped up because
LeBron's got to be kicking.
That's just a franchise, and
from the Buddy Hield trade, they originally had Buddy Hield and I think
yeah.
Lakers got to be kicking themselves because it seems like they are regretting their decision to not make that trade.
Hield would have been great there.
It would have been the perfect fit.
Yeah, and Westbrook,
especially since we're seeing, with Russ, right. It's just a mess.
I kind of hope they trade Russ for John Wall, but anyway, pick number 4. I want to see John Wall back, big John Wall.
Number 4.
Anyway, number 4.
Gotta love John Wall. So this question comes deep from the process era Sixers fan in me. So I'm going to the game on Monday, and I'm really disappointed to not be seeing TJ McConnell out there because of the injury. But what do you think the Pacers are missing most from the injury that TJ McConnell suffered? Because he's a player who can bring a lot of intangibles to the court.
Well, he and Lance Stevenson are totally different kinds of players, but I find this dynamic so interesting because you hear the energy that McConnell brings you or the energy that Stevenson brings you. But if it were that simple to be that impactful, just giving a lot of effort, you'd see a lot more guys that do that. So there's also an intangible there. There's like an innate ability that some guys just have. And, when you look at the Pacers as a team, Malcolm Brogdon, Karis LeVert, Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner, TJ Warren, there's a lot of talent there. There's no doubting that. None of those guys are necessarily the guys that are going to yell, scream, get in your face type of guys. They tend to be a little bit more reserved. So I'm a firm believer that you need a lot of different kinds of guys in locker rooms. And McConnell's not a guy that's going to yell and scream and get in your face. He's lighthearted, that kind of thing. But the energy that he brings you off of the bench, the Pacers are just really missing it. And I think you're seeing how much they're missing it when you see Stevenson come in. And while he's a different type of player, he's bringing that same kind of dynamic. So that, and then the guy just, look, I remember early on, when I basically started was the start of that process. So I remember those Sixers teams. And, there were some guys like Alexei Shved. There were some guys. Man. And when you saw that team initially, you were like, TJ McConnell is not on an NBA roster if he's not part of the Sixers process. And then you look at him now, what he was able to do in Philadelphia. He comes to the Pacers. He earns a second contract on a decent, a fair amount of money. The guy's so inspiring, and just the energy he brings, the vision he brings. The Pacers are really, really missing that now. And I just saw him today. He's still got that cast on his wrist. It kind of goes up just below the elbow. So we haven't gotten an update on him anytime recently, but hopefully a couple more weeks, you get the All-Star break in there, and we can at least start to look for some sort of time frame for his return, because I think there's no question, as you've seen the Pacers struggle a little bit more than you might expect, not having McConnell there is probably a bigger reason for that than most might realize, just because he provides you something that there probably aren't a whole lot of other players on the roster that can provide that specific thing.
Yeah. I remember from when he was in Philly, he would just be that spark plug whenever we needed him. Just come off the bench, turn nothing into a bucket. As Mark Zumoff would say, garbage into gold. Get a steal, provide an assist, and he's still beloved by everyone in the Sixers fan base. So
and every time
he's just one play.
Every time the Sixers visit here with him, you would have thought like they were coming to see Moses Malone or he's loved by the Sixers. There's a parallel there. McConnell and the Sixers fans and Stevenson and Pacers fans. There's a definite parallel there.
The spark plugs are loved by
I
when
agree.
they first start. They are loved there forever.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. He never has to pay for a cheesesteak in Philly ever again. I'm just going to say that now. But all right, my final question. Do you have any way too early MVP picks for the end of the year?
Oh, gosh. I probably was going to say Durant. This injury has maybe muddied those waters a little bit. So, maybe a guy like Steph is in a really good position. Mm-hmm. The Lakers probably aren't winning enough. They probably have to win more for LeBron to get back into the conversation. Giannis will always be there. It's an interesting year, and it was last year too. Who would have seen Jokic winning it? He's one of the best guys in the league.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would have predicted that. So I think the door is open here for somebody that when you initially start, you go LeBron, and you go if Kawhi's healthy, Kawhi and Durant and Steph and maybe Harden, probably not playing with Durant, but Harden on the Rockets. So unfortunately, to give you a boring answer, I don't have a pick, although I guess I do think that this could be the kind of year where you get a surprise type player. I don't think DeRozan's going to win it, but DeRozan's a kind of just keep your eye on him. If Chicago continues to play really well and he continues his upper 20 points per game kind of thing, the reality on a guy like him is he's probably going to finish, fourth or fifth or sixth, which if he does, by the way, is a phenomenal landing spot for a guy like that. They got him for really not too much. He's been huge to Chicago. But he's the kind of guy where, if Chicago would rip off a huge winning streak and he were to be scoring 30 points per game, I'm not going to predict it, but from a bold prediction standpoint, he might be the guy where it's just worth keeping an eye on him.
He really wanted you to
That's
say,
a good futures bet right
you
there.
to say Joel Embiid. That's all that he was just sitting there waiting for you to say Joel Embiid, and I think he's very sad you didn't say Joel Embiid.
No. I wanted the genuine answer, and I think I might put some money down on the DeRozan one now, just in case. Maybe like a little $5 there.
Well, I guess the Sixers are they're 9 games over. So yeah, Embiid I think is definitely in that sleeper category. They got to get though, like if they're not in the top 3, that's probably not happening. But they're close enough.
No, I agree.
Where you can make the case if they run off a big stretch of games, they're close enough where you could say. Without Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid carried this team to a top 3. See, yeah, I would put him in that kind of DeRozan category where I'm not going to pick it, but if you're looking for long shot type of guys, especially look, Jokic winning it showed that bigs indeed can win this award. So yeah,
absolutely,
I would put Embiid in that DeRozan type of category, and I think it's going to ultimately end up, where those teams finish. Like Chicago right now is in second, but they were just in 5th or 6th not too long ago. That top 6 is pretty jumbled, and you just never see an MVP really outside of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league.
What about John Morant?
Yeah,
that's
I would love to see that.
That's another one you might. I think this could be the year he does it. He's following a very Derrick Rose-esque path.
That's a good comparison. That's a really good comparison. Yeah, I like that pick. Again, I'm not going to choose it, but I've got the standings here. They're in 3rd. It looks like it's going to be pretty hard, to catch like Phoenix or something like that. But if Memphis is winning 2/3 of their games, which they are right now, by the end of the year, that would put them at something like 55 wins. If they win 55 games, Morant keeps doing this. Again, what probably ends up happening is he finishes like 2nd or 3rd or 4th or something like that. And then because typically there's like an arc to winning. You get close for a year or 2, and then you go over, the hump. Giannis did that. Most guys do that. They finish high. Typically, the voters aren't willing to give that first-year guy that kind of respect. But yeah, that's a great pick. Morant's a great pick.
That's another little sleeper. All right. So just one real general question. So you traveled every game, right? Just double checking. I don't want to sound like an idiot. You do traveled every game?
So first of all, nobody for us has traveled since the pandemic.
Really?
We hope to get back on the road January 1st. And Omicron hit, and that was not the time to start to get back on the road. My role, I actually, for the most part, do not travel. So when the team is on the road, I'm still working the game, but I'm doing it from a studio based out of Indianapolis. I have traveled, usually if the playoff game is close, like in Cleveland. I'll travel to those kind of things. I filled in for Mark and Chris on radio and TV, and I traveled then. But if you're going to ask a question about NBA arenas or something along those lines, I've traveled to most of the cities, but actually with my job, I've not traveled with the Pacers to a majority of the NBA arenas.
So, I wasn't really sure because I know sometimes, especially with COVID and all that, makes it a little more difficult, and obviously it's a little bit different for everyone else. Because I don't know why this is kind of a weird thing. I remember when I worked for the Fuel. Sometimes like some stuff would be delayed and it would take forever to get there. So like, I know radio's usually on time. It's usually actually the first thing that's actually on track and on pace with like what's going on live, if this makes any sense whatsoever. So like, do you guys just have like these automatic feeds that are actually like quicker than what you get like on a TV or like a broadcast or things like that?
Yes, we're broadcasting out of a studio, and the feed that gets there is I don't know how the technology works. It's called HSAN. Maybe somebody listening knows what that stands for. I have no idea. But it's basically like a live direct feed with almost no delay. Like the video we're watching when it's a road game, if you're in the arena, maybe a 1/4 of a second ahead. But I mean, it's pretty much dead on. The technology, as much as the pandemic really stinks from a sports perspective, we're so lucky that it's happening in an era where we can make this work technologically. There's Zoom and there's live feeds like this, and so we are fortunate to have that. When the team is normally on the road and our radio play-by-play guy is calling the game and I'm from the studio, I'm watching the TV broadcast actually and listening to our radio broadcast, And there's usually about a 10-second delay between those two things. So that's something that can be really challenging, is what I'm hearing Mark Boyle say in my ears is not what I'm watching on the television screen.
It's a little weird. It's a little weird. That's something I've learned, especially gambling. Like even like I'll be like college sports on like CBS. I've noticed CBS is like 30 seconds to a minute behind. And like I'll look at the score real quick because I'm just kind of curious, like, oh, I wonder what the odds are. And then I see it's like 49 to 41, but on TV it's like 45 to 41. It's like, what happened? I don't know. Right. It's crazy. The feeds are all over the place.
Yeah, if you're using like YouTube TV or Hulu, if you're on one of the streaming ones, the delay is even more pronounced. So I actually came down with Omicron, basically an asymptomatic case, a couple of weeks ago. And another example of just how great the technology is, our engineer was able to basically give me a remote box that I'm in my house right now. I went down in my living room, plugged the box in. I had a headset like I normally wear, and you could not have been able to tell I was not at the game. So there were two Pacers home games I missed, and a road game I missed, and I was not next to Mark on the road game in the studio like I normally am. I was not down courtside. There are some observational things you might have been able to notice, like I wasn't able to be in huddles like I normally am. But the technology was great. The only downside was I had to go back to watching the game. I was watching it off of League Pass, which you're going over the internet, you're going over streaming. The video was probably 30 seconds behind what was being called. And it's almost like I had to listen to the game. And then if something interesting happened, then I would look up and watch it on the TV. Because if you're trying to watch on TV 30 seconds behind what you're hearing, you'll go insane and you won't catch.
It's like three plays behind, like 2 or 3 plays behind, especially with the pace of play. You're so far behind if you look up the TV and listening on your ears.
Oh, yeah, you're easily a couple possessions behind. The nice thing, though, is if something really good happens, you have a built-in replay.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this great dunk, or, oh, they're reviewing this contact above the shoulders at the replay center. Well, I know, all right, wait 20 seconds and then I'll be able to see it. So, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. But that was, honestly, it was really cool how, not that I got COVID, but like how we were able to adjust to that, and where the technology is nowadays, like you could not have been able to tell, which is just crazy.
That is crazy. That really is crazy. What's been like, so this is the last question I got. What's the hardest sport in your opinion to cover that you've covered throughout your career? Because I know you did a lot of, I know you had to cover everything at Ball State.
Yeah. Yeah. For those who don't know, when you get into broadcasting and you are young and you are covering every little thing, I've covered so many sports. So the hardest one, but it's also one of the most fun, but the one that takes probably the most skill, at least I would say, to call is hockey. Basketball is a fast game. Hockey is a light speed game. I mean, the amount of times the puck moves, the speed in which it moves, and not just that, you got guys subbing out every 2 minutes, and you've got like 18 guys who are every 2 minutes, different sets of 6 guys on the ice, and they're wearing helmets, so it's hard to see faces, big pads and all of that, sort of like football. But unlike football, like you're not going to confuse an offensive lineman from a running back, from a wide receiver, from a linebacker. A lot of hockey guys, they just look kind of the same with the pads on. So they got a helmet that obstructs you from being able to see their face. They've got pads on and they all sort of look the same. They're subbing off every 2 minutes, and the game is moving so freaking fast that you really have to. The guys who do play-by-play for hockey at a very high level, everybody who does it for a pro team is good at what they do. But the guys that do hockey are all phenomenally talented, because you have to be like you can sometimes hide maybe not the best play-by-play guy in baseball, which is a slower sport. If they're good at telling stories and if they're entertaining, you can kind of hide them in baseball. Basketball's hard to do because it's pretty fast. But honestly, you kind of can on football too, like because you call 5 or 6 seconds of action and then you have 20 seconds, 25 seconds to kind of regroup. And so football has a natural cadence to it where you're not going all the time. Hockey is like on a 1 to 10 scale in terms of just constant action is like a 10, and basketball, the NBA especially, small short shot clocks and the type of athletes that are on there, like calling, it really stood out to me the first time I called an NBA game after doing so much high school and college. and WNBA, like the speed of the NBA game is just a completely different monster. So I really enjoyed hockey. I don't know that I like the sport enough or I don't know that I'm passionate enough about the sport to do it full time. But if you know a hockey play-by-play announcer, you should have a great amount of respect for what they're able to do, because that is tough stuff, and you have to be totally locked in. Well, you get the intermission periods, but for those 20 minutes at a time, like, you have to be so locked in. It's really impressive, and I love watching hockey because of that. Doc Emmerich, Gary Thorne are a couple guys that like immediately jump out to me. Like, they are so good at it, and it's to me, like, when people go and they watch a play or theater or a concert or something, and like they're just overwhelmed by the art of it. Like, to me, that's listening to a really good play-by-play announcer, and so often the very best are in, not all of them, but many of the very best are in hockey.
This is so high fan. I remember when I worked for the Fuel minor league ECHL. It was like doing social media and keeping up with all the plays. Like, that was also kind of crazy, because like you had to like keep like, all right, this time there could be a highlight. This time's a highlight. This time's a highlight. This time's a highlight. It's like literally nonstop. Like, I'm running one down, and I look up, there's another one I just completely missed. It's just nonstop.
It's insane.
It's nuts.
And then like baseball is the total flip of that, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Just because baseball doesn't have a ton of constant action. First of all, baseball games take forever. So like, you have to be able to talk for 3.5 hours oftentimes and not always have a ton of action. There is a real skill in being able to transition from here's the pitch and then if there's a play, if the guy hits the ball, describing the play, but then you're going to have long periods of dead time. So you have to be able to weave in storylines and anecdotes and to keep a baseball broadcast interesting. I don't mean by saying hockey to say that, because baseball is probably, if you will, the slowest of those, that's the easiest. By no means. In fact, I think it would be perhaps easier for somebody like me to do hockey, because I'm so used to an up and down sport that goes left and right and left and right. And then baseball is just a whole different world. But it's fascinating how different they all are, at least of those mainstream sports. That's what I would say. Like, if I've really barely, like, one time dabbled in did some wrestling, some of those other, like, gymnastics, those would be the hardest, because you have to learn rules that you don't know. But of the games where and of the sports where the rules, hockey probably takes the most, like, natural talent, but baseball probably takes, the best ability to storytell for 3 hours and be able to weave all that in.
How much? Okay, this is actually the last question. How much stuff do you have prepared? Like, let's just use the game last night for the Pacers as an example on Wednesday. How much stuff do you have prepared in case of a blowout, like kind of like that? Like, how much information you guys have each game ready to go just in case it kind of gets out of hand?
Yeah, so I will say for me, this is different from Pacers to Fever. So when I'm doing play-by-play, it's a decent amount more than when I'm doing. So what I do for the Pacers is I host the pregame show, I host the sideline show on radio, I host the halftime show on radio, and I do sideline reports throughout the game. Mark Boyle is actually the one doing the play-by-play. So my job is, we don't have, like, on the TV side, they've got a producer, they've got a bunch of people that help put the TV pregame show together. The radio pregame show is literally all me. Like, I'm cutting the highlights, the sound bites that we're going to do. I'm cutting this, I'm cutting that, I'm putting the script together. So that's a lot of the preparational work. And then we do have an engineer back at the studio who knows when to play this stuff and will actually play it for us. But so I'm usually prepared with like 5 or 6 pre-rehearsed, pre-prepared sideline hits, whether it's, like if you go back to a game like last night against the Hornets, I had something on Gordon Hayward being an Indy guy, being the injury he's going through. I had something on him. I had something on the younger players for the Pacers that have been playing well on the road trip. I had something on the injury status for a lot of those guys. But really, as the game goes on, a lot of that pre-prepared stuff becomes less and less timely, because you're now just reacting and reporting on the game in front of you. A lot of those are used as the first couple to kind of set the scene. So to answer your question, basically every play-by-play announcer has some form of what we call a board or a chart. And the best way I can describe it is, for somebody who's never done it, would be, it's sort of like in high school when you got we had these. I don't know if everybody had these, but if you ever had like a test where the teacher told you get either one sheet of paper or like one note card.
Yeah.
You can write whatever you want on that note card to use on the test, but that's it. So that's sort of like what preparing to do play-by-play is like. You have now you're not literally limited to this one sheet, but for all intents and purposes, you have a sheet in front of you, and this is what you need to go off of for the majority of the game. So for me and for most guys, our boards will have one sheet will be your team or team A, and the other will be team B. It'll have the entire roster set up, all of the players, and then some team stats, some team notes. And I would say in a normal game, we probably get to 15 to 20% of what's on our board. So about 80% of our preparation never gets used. But as you said, if you get a blowout, a game like the Hornets game in the second half, that might get up to 30 or 40 or even 50% of what we have. But so much of our jobs is preparing for all these different scenarios that are probably never going to happen. But if they do, you have to be ready for them. If Kelly Oubre hits 10 threes, you got to quickly be able to tell the listener that that's a career high for him. And so 99% of the time, Kelly Oubre is not going to hit 10 threes. We have to be ready for the one game that he does kind of stuff. So it ends up being a fair amount of work, and most of it doesn't get used, but you never know what will get used. So you have to be ready for all of that other stuff. I'd say maybe like 8 hours per game on a play-by-play game is the like time dynamic that goes into preparing for a game. Probably about 8 to 10 hours goes into each game that's done before you actually get into the arena.
Interesting. Okay. Now I keep saying it. Last question. This is the last question. How much do you have to do then for like the Indiana high school football games? Like, how do you do you have stuff prepared for like 8 hours of the stuff for that ready to go too?
So to keep my comparison going here, doing a high school football state championship game or a basketball football state championship game is sort of like in high school when you didn't really listen to the teacher and then all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, the test is in a week and I don't know any of the material, and you cram and you cram and you cram, and if you do it right, you cram well enough that you are ready for that test. It took a ton of work, but you are ready for that test and you do a good job on that test. And I don't know if I'm like anybody else, but like a week later, I can't really remember most of that stuff that I was cramming. So that's what it's like to do those games because I'm so immersed in the NBA. I can tell you, most of the games that happened last night and the scores and the players and the storylines and all that. It's my job to follow all of that. So it's great. I'm so appreciative of the folks at the IHSA for letting me, kind of stand in and do some freelance work with them. But usually what will happen is on like a Friday or a Saturday, there will be the semi-state games that will set up the state championships, and I'll know that I'm doing 5A or whatever. So I'll know the class that I'm doing, but you don't know the teams usually until Saturday or Sunday. And then when that happens, especially if I'm doing a smaller school, I don't really know anything about them. And then there's a press conference on Monday where you get to meet the coach, which is just infinitely helpful. Like that's where 80% of what I need comes from. Sit down like we are here and literally go 45 minutes with each coach. And then the other great thing about technology now, even that was different than when like you and I were in high school. When I was in high school at Carmel and doing high school games, this isn't that long ago, like 2007, 8, 9, it was really hard to find stuff online about any of the players, any of the teams, any of that stuff. Now there's a site, and the site existed then, but it's so much better now. There's a site called Max Preps.
Yeah.
And just about every team's rosters are on there. Their stats are on there. All this stuff is on there, which is great. So they can be like, especially with football, there's so many players. I'm usually exhausted by the time we get past that Thanksgiving weekend because the Pacers are playing at their normal cadence. And then in those off days, I'm trying to prepare for a football game and then do the football game and then match all that with the Pacers. I'm usually like by the end of November exhausted just from all of that. But yeah, so like when I'm doing the Fever, we're calling every single game. So I'm updating my fever charts and the players and the team stats and all of that. But I know the team. I know everything that's happening. I could probably close that half of my board and 90% of the stuff I know here because you're around it every day. It's the other team that you really need. Well, when you do those high school games, not only are you not following their seasons the whole year long, but you don't know either of the teams. And whereas basketball, you need to know 12 guys, in the NBA, 15 guys. On a football team, you need to know 20, 30 sometimes. So they're fun to do. I love doing football. I love still being able to get to do football, but it is so much work to get them right. And if you're not going to do it, like if you're not going to put in the work, you're not going to get it done right. And then you might as well, let somebody else do the job. And that's something I take a lot of pride in. Like, I will admittedly tell you, 6 days, 7 days before, if you watch me on the IHSA Football State Championships, I didn't know a single thing about either of those teams, and I will admit that to you. But what I will also tell you is by the time that game happened, I knew everything that I needed to know about those teams. And I can't tell you most of that right now, to be honest, because I've forgotten it. But at least the time that test was taken, I knew that stuff. But yeah, it's definitely a lot, especially football. Basketball's a little easier just because less players, but yeah, it's a challenge and it takes a lot of work.
Going over those 100 players like at Carmel or whatever, it's got to be a little tough.
It's actually why I prefer to do 1A, 2A, because those schools tend to have guys that play offense and then also play defense. So like Carmel and Ben Davis and Warren and Center Grove and North Central and those schools, Fishers, HSC, we know them all if you're in the state. They operate almost more like small colleges, huge rosters and specialists all over the place. You go do like Sheridan or something, and the quarterback is the safety, and the running back is the linebacker, and the offensive tackle is the defensive tackle. So that I actually prefer doing that because it's just less guys to have to know. And the small schools also, and you're talking to someone who went to the biggest school in the state, but the small schools, there's just such like a natural love and appreciation for being there. Whereas sometimes the big schools, they operate kind of like college programs. Mm-hmm. And, this is who we are. This is what we do, culture, tradition, and all of that. Whereas for the small schools, like you literally get to see the whole city come into Lucas Oil Stadium or the whole city come into Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And there's something, especially for a guy that went to the biggest school in the state, there's something really enjoyable watching these towns like revel in the moment. I mean, even smaller stuff like just being in Indianapolis, for some of these schools that are an hour and a half away and in rural Indiana, like they don't come to, many of us don't think of Indianapolis as a huge city because it's really not. It's the 20th biggest or whatever in the country. But like for some people, like coming to Indianapolis itself is a massive event. I love watching that sometimes as much as anything. So to be honest with you, from a guy who did 5A, 6A football and basketball, or I guess it's 4A basketball now, 6A football, give me the 1A and the 2A schools any day.
Love to hear it. All right, that's all we got. So before we let you go, man, obviously you got Pacers, you got Fever. If there's anything else you want to throw out there, throw it on out. Also, congrats on getting engaged.
I appreciate. What'd you say?
Getting engaged like 4 months late. Congrats on that.
Thank you very much. It's been a whirlwind. That actually happened. Not to get down a big rabbit hole, but like the Fever season ends in mid-September, and then the Pacers season starts in early October, and so I had a small little window to get that done. The engagement, and it was like we were in Italy on like October 3rd, and then I was helping call a game on October 5th back in Indianapolis. So it was crazy. It was a whirlwind, but I appreciate that. No, if you're in the Indy area, we'd love to have you at the Field House, Pacers.com/tickets. We have the Fever season coming up. Basketball pretty much does not stop in that building. There's like maybe a 2-month or a 2-week pause at the end of the Pacers season and like a 2-week pause at the end of the Fever season before the other one picks up. But if you're watching, you're a basketball diehard. We got 11 of the 12 months of the year basketball in that building. Now, some of it will move, as we talked about earlier, over the fairgrounds and over to Hinkle because of the renovations going on this summer. But hey, if you love basketball, we'd love to see you. We've got basketball almost all year round at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. But hey, I appreciate both of you having me on as well. This was an enjoyable discussion. I'm looking up, and this is an hour and 8 minutes, and I can't believe we've talked.
I know,
so
kind of crazy.
That's
I should show you my notes after this because it's like kind of funny. I didn't put a whole lot down. I was like, I can just do this. This isn't going to be too hard. Just talking Pacers, NBA, cashing up, nothing too crazy. But yeah, anyway, great having you. Also, stick with me for like a couple, after we wrap up, you guys stick here so it all loads into our system or whatever you want to call it. So just a heads up on that. So with that said, see you guys in a minute. All right. That was a long interview with Pat Boylan. Obviously, great having him on. Family friend of the program. Obviously, obviously, Pierre Garcon. Great guest. Long show. We'll keep this nice, short, and simple.
Yes, sir.
Let's move on to some UFC news. So there was some pretty big news this week. So let's just start off with not so controversial news. You can't really overtake this news. Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira announced for May 7th, as well as Glover Teixeira versus Yuri. Prohashka, sorry, I almost forgot his last name, but they're booked now for May 7th. Dynamite card. Best card so far, I'd probably say, the year on paper. It's going to be a lot of fun. Shout out to all the Conor fans and their feelings that he didn't actually get a title shot off of one win since 2016 in the lightweight division. So GG's at them. Shocker. Yeah, May 7th, though. If they put Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson on that card, holy baby, that would definitely be card of the year. I'm very excited for that, Harry. That's a card I'm going to make you watch front to back the entire thing. So
I'm looking forward to.
They're loading that up. It's going to be a lot of Brazilian fighters, I think, too. So
good stuff.
It's supposed to be in Rio. Couldn't do it. No big deal. Still get a lot of fun. So now let's move into the gossip, the drama, the reality TV show news. So there's two big things that have happened this past week, all stupider than the next. So the first, let's just go into what happened today, or as you're all listening yesterday, maybe it was 2 days ago. Kamaru Usman does this interview, and he says, I'm so confident in myself or whatever. He's all in his feelings. He says, I could have skipped Israel Adesanya in the 185 division, jumped up to 2-5, and I think I could have beat Jan Blachowicz. He's smoking so much crack. The fuck is he talking about? That's such a... he's in his feelings. Wow. He's in his feelings. Jan would have, you can barely, how can I describe this? You were wobbled by Colby Covington. What makes you think that you're going to be able to handle a shot from Jan Blachowicz? The fuck?
That's insane.
Fuck?
How can you say he can skip over Israel, too?
Well, because he doesn't want to fight Izzy. So he says, I'm just going to skip over him because I don't want to have to fight him. So I'm going to go up to 205 and fight this dude who's going to be weighing 245 pounds in the octagon. And I'm going to be weighing, maybe 200. That's a 40-pound differential
at most.
Yeah. That would end terribly, just absolutely terribly. I understand he's in his feelings. Then Rashad Evans came out and said he would legit be a problem in any weight class. Let's settle down. He goes up to the heavyweight and fights Francis Ngannou. Francis is going to kill him.
There's a sharp difference from going from 185 to fighting 240 pounders. That's too sharp a difference.
What the weight? Let's play a little game as you are casual. Do you know what weight class Kamaru Usman's in?
It's what's light heavyweight? Is that a thing? Or is that boxing?
He's a welterweight.
Okay, damn.
He's at 170.
Welterweight.
He's at welterweight. 170.
Welterweight.
Jan Blachowicz.
I'm still trying to memorize the weight classes.
What weight class is Jan Blachowicz?
Is that heavyweight or
light heavyweight? He was the champion before Glover, and he lost to Glover. Okay. But anyway, he was talking about skipping over to fight Jan. Jan would have killed him. Jan's knocked out a lot of people. He's knocked out a lot of dudes. He has that Polish power. I don't understand how he thinks he could have took down Jan Blachowicz, held him down, and dragged him into deep waters. Because he's not knocking Jan out.
Yeah.
He's not. He's not going to submit Jan. He's not going to control him for 25 minutes. Jan Blachowicz was going to knock him out, or he would have dragged him into deep waters like that. There's a reason there's weight classes. That kind of shit. Absolutely. I understand you want to hype yourself up. Let's chill out with that. I understand you're feeling yourself. You are the pound for pound best fighter right now, but let's chill with that. So let's move on to my favorite storyline of the week. And it's Jake Paul versus Dana White. Always delivers on quality content, quality comments, quality quote posts. And a lot
entertaining as hell.
Oh, well, it's also the best thing is the reporters all go against each other. And that's just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
So last night, yesterday it's reported Jake Paul is investing in the UFC and Endeavor. And as most of us expect, he probably just bought one share of the $30 stock and is saying he's investing in the UFC. Like the rest of us made that joke about a year ago whenever UFC and Endeavor went public. And then Ariel Helwani usually drills all of his information, says that he's actually with this. Like Jake Paul told him and his people that he's going in with this investment group. Ariel Helwani reports this. A couple hours later, this group's like, "Who the fuck is Jake Paul?" And so, Ariel, earlier in the day, Ariel was like dunking on this guy, Aaron Brunster, whatever his name is. He's always on the money too. And Aaron was like, "No, he didn't. He's not in this investment group." And Ariel's like, "Yes, he is. He didn't just buy his stock." Dunk 10-7 Helwani. It wasn't that simple. Yeah. He really just literally bought a share of stock and is acting like that. And what ended up happening was he's not just investing in him. Now he's making a diss track against Dana White. Did you see this?
Of course he is.
I'm starting the show off by telling everyone to go listen to it. If you haven't listened to it, like just shut this off and go listen to it. I guarantee you this. Just don't take it seriously. Just listen. Just listen to Jake, because Jake Paul is a terrible rapper. All of his music sucks. Yes. Just listen to it and just appreciate that greatness. We'll have a recap. We'll go through the song on Tuesday. But again, go listen to that song. That's just gonna be so funny. But he's making a diss track against Dana White.
That's incredible. I just hope he has a bar in there that will top. What was it? The Team 10 rap song they dropped in like 2016 with the "London Is My City" bar in there.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember any of their bars. I purposely don't remember.
It's that one. I know, but it's that one line that sticks out to me. The fucking "London Is My City."
It's like Team 10.
Or no, not England is my city. England is my city, not London is my city, because that actually makes sense. But the England is my city shit.
Jake Paul, rap star. What can we say? So
yeah,
that's all the UFC news. I really see important stuff. Obviously, a lot of fights got announced, but like those are the main ones. As we get closer, we'll talk. We'll shoot the shit. Next week, fight week. Can't wait. Our boy Mike Trezano, maybe a couple other friends of the program as well. Don't want to reveal too much because we're still talking to them. So they're not friends until they commit and they're actually on the show. Anyway, so as I said on Tuesday, we're gonna go move into medals. So every Friday, what we're gonna do is we're gonna give our bronze, silver, gold, then honorary members, honorary finalists. So kind of like Olympics, kind of just easy way to shoot the shit about whatever. No Fraud Friday this week. We push it a week back. I'll be coming in hot with some frauds. So anyway, we'll start with our medals. Harrison, if you want to go ahead and give me your bronze medal, let's hear it.
Yep. So my bronze medal for this week goes to Josh Allen.
Josh Allen.
He would have gotten the gold. Josh Allen.
Okay.
He would have gotten the gold had the Bills pulled out the win. But that was just one of the greatest all-time quarterback performances in a divisional round game. And it just had me like wishing for more football, or that he had a shot in overtime. But
okay, I'm going to go ahead and give
that man deserves at least a medal.
He deserves a medal? Okay, well, I'm going to give mine to J.R. Smith. Yeah. Because for all those who don't know, from the Kobe Gigi Memorial, rest in peace, this was the infamous pipe tweet. And for all of you who don't know the pipe tweet, a girl says, "I'm going to your game tonight." J.R. Smith replies, "Dope." Girl replies, "Smiley face." J.R. Smith, "Oh, really? Girl, oh, really what?" Smirk. "You're really trying to get the pipe." The greatest tweet of all, one of the best tweets / best images you'll ever see. Love J.R. Smith. He gets my bronze medal this week because that's just one of the best pictures of all time. It sucks it's on the same day as Kobe's death, but that picture will live in infamy. J.R. Smith, congratulations, you're my bronze medalist. I'll go ahead and we'll do a snake draft. I'll go with my silver. My silver is hope.
Yep.
It's hope. Mine's hope for NFL franchises is it's the beginning of new beginnings. Head coaches are being hired. Every franchise thinks, "Oh, next year is our year." As a Colts fan, I have a lot of hope because we're switching up defensive coordinators. I love Flus, but in terms of our development of players, things like that wasn't too great. So I have hope our defense can actually get some 3-and-outs. For the Bears, they're hopeful that maybe Justin Fields is going to develop. For a lot of teams, it's just a hopeful season. The hopeful season really gets big, though, here in a couple months, but I'm going to hope because people are starting to get hired. A little positivity,
Yeah.
All right. Harry, you're silver.
All right. So mine's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum to hope. It's my silver medal goes to all the Flyers fans out there who still have their Twitter picture as the fan with the bag over his head. Because this week the Flyers gave every single one of us reason to keep that bag on our heads. They've been wasting the career of our long-serving captain and just not listening to what we have to do to get out of the gutter. So silver medal to those of us Flyers fans who still feel tremendous shame in the fact that we support the team we do.
All right, and your gold?
And my gold goes to every single NFL fan out there who isn't a Packers fan or a Bucs or Patriots fan, because we finally have a championship round of the playoffs with no Aaron Rodgers and no Tom Brady for the first time in over 12 years. And I think everyone deserves a gold medal for getting to this point.
Well, God bless. God bless everyone.
Yep.
It's great to not be haunted for first time in God knows how long. So my gold is going to Spotify.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because they picked a winner between Joe Rogan and Neil Young. They chose Joe Rogan. They literally told Neil Young to go fuck himself. And so they get my gold medal for just telling this guy to fuck off. We'll just take your music off the platform and we're going to stick with our $100 million man. I don't care what your beliefs are. Yeah. That shit's still funny as hell because the guys, they literally called his bluff and they took him off Spotify.
It's so funny because it's like, oh, bet. You don't want it on? Bet. See ya.
God damn, that's so funny. So before I get into my honorable mention, do you have an honorable mention?
No.
Okay, well,
all
right, you got your three. So my honorable mention goes to Jeff Fisher. Congratulations for becoming the head coach of the Michigan Panthers. Yeah, that's correct, Michigan Panthers. And he's getting an honorable mention because usually he doesn't get into the finals. He doesn't usually get past the average area. So I can't wait for the Michigan Panthers to go 4-4. Congratulations, Jeff Fisher. You're an honorary mention this week.
Oh, is this for the USFL?
Yep.
Oh, hell yeah.
Jeff Fisher's back. Jeff Fisher's back.
Jeff Fisher.
So that's those are medals, you know. Have some fun with it. So let's move on to NFL. Yeah, obviously you got big NFL this Sunday. So, you know, let's just start with, I don't know what the order of the games are. I didn't want to do that much research into it because who the fuck cares? They're both games. They're both on Sunday. That's all I know. We got Chiefs Bengals. Let's start with the AFC to start with the game that you know, it's a 7-point spread. I hate that because that means that they must think the Chiefs are going to beat the living piss out of the Bengals. But the Bengals are hot. Mm-hmm. They're hot. I don't know. It's one of those things where what sucks for the Chiefs is a lot of those guys are so fucking likable. And the only reason no one likes them is because of a guy who's on TikTok and someone's wife. So that's unfortunate.
Damn shame.
It is a damn shame. It's not like they're terrible losers. They're actually good losers, except for those two people who are not actually on the field, except when it's dancing on someone's memorial site. So
or spraying champagne on a bunch of cold ass Chiefs fans.
Yeah, or that too. Yeah. So I don't really know what to I mean, I'm honestly expecting the Chiefs just to beat the piss out of them. Last year when they were going through their run, they kept like getting down big and then coming back. I think this is gonna be one of the. They're due for like a blowout playoff game. I like Joe Burrow. The Chiefs defense is gonna get to him though, and I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. I'm not very high on the Bengals. I think the Cinderella runs over. Big bad Chiefs are the new Patriots. This is kind of the way it is.
So I see this game playing out. There are two scenarios in my head in which I see this game playing out. Either we get a repeat of, what was it, week 16 when the Bengals played the Chiefs? Week 17? Whatever it was. Week 17. A game that comes right down to the wire. And in that scenario, I see the Bengals kicking another game-winning field goal and walking off with it. Or the Chiefs just do what the Chiefs are meant to do and spank Joe Burrow and that little partition that he calls an offensive line into just absolute nothingness and is a stop.
Well, so, here's a take. Here's a take that I will live on and I will die on. If the Bengals make it to the Super Bowl, both those matchups are dog shit for them. Like they have to play either the 49ers or the Rams. Their pass rush is so good. It's like the stop ends here with the Bengals. If they win, they're not winning the Super Bowl. It's a feel-good trophy. You guys made it. Congrats. Chiefs, on the other hand, if they win, obviously they have a chance in every game they're in because of Patrick Mahomes. But it's kind of one of those things. It's for me personally, even though the writers are like, it's bad for the NFL if the Chiefs don't make the Super Bowl. It kind of is because the Bengals are not going to be competitive if they make it to the Super Bowl. You won't hear that take from anyone. I'll say it the way it is. Like the 49ers beat the Rams got to Tom Brady all game. They're gonna get to Joe Burrow 9 times too.
It's a scary ass defensive line.
Exactly, and the 49ers are same way. They are just as scary, especially if they have Bosa.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's
you got Aaron Donald on one side or Bosa on the other. It's a lose-lose scenario.
The Bengals stop their winning ends this weekend. If they win, again, congrats, you made the Super Bowl. Like, you guys killed expectations. But if you lose, it's not the end of the world. Like, honestly, if you're the Bengals, it's fine. Again, you won't hear this anywhere else. You probably want to lose, because I don't know if you want to go to the Super Bowl and just get your shit kicked that hard.
Yeah, that'd be embarrassing on a national stage.
I don't know if you want that. Because last time you had like a young team like that, young quarterback, Panthers, it broke them.
Oh god,
broke them when they got blown out. Just completely broke them. So let's go to Rams.
Cam Newton's never been the same.
No, he literally hasn't been the same, and which sucks. I love Cam. Let's move on to the Rams 49ers. This game, I think, it's obviously by spreads and everything. This is going to be a lot more competitive. Can Jimmy G continue to win these games without throwing a touchdown? I don't know. Is Matt Stafford going to continue this kind of ascension from everyone doubting him to like, oh my God, Matt Stafford? Who would have thought? We'll see. I'm excited. I think Matt Stafford, I think this is the year. This is going to be one of those feel-good stories where Matt Stafford finally wins a Super Bowl.
I 100% agree. I really thought that if they could get past the Bucs, if they were going to play the Packers, it would be a different story. But with home field advantage against the Niners, I really don't see the Rams losing this game. I see Matt Stafford going out there and putting up an all-time performance again. A lot of touchdowns, OBJ, Cooper Kupp celebrating, great vibes in LA, and then going back to their home field again for the Super Bowl.
Only issue. You know what the Rams' record is against the 49ers since McVay and Shanahan have taken over?
No, I do not.
McVay has never beaten Kyle Shanahan.
Well, he's due then.
He is past due. I'm just saying. I'm for everyone who was here last week and listened, I'm in this pool where I picked 8 teams. 3 of my teams are left. No big deal. No big deal. I got to put a future on the Rams. So I don't know how much it's going to pay me. Whatever, I'm going to put it in. So no matter what, I'm in the win. I win no matter what. Mm-hmm. So a little round of applause for me. Thank you. I know I'm smarter than everyone else. But that's what we got. I mean, so like Rams 49ers to be competitive. Hopefully McVay can get the monkey off his back. Stafford can make it to the Super Bowl. Get that.
I'd love to see that.
And like you know, obviously all the writers like Chiefs Rams is what everyone wants. That is what you should want. Stop fucking being contradictory.
It's gonna be a great game.
You don't want Chiefs Rams. Yeah. Last time they played each other, they scored like 120 points or whatever on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, that was one of the most ridiculous games of all time.
You should want that.
Regular season.
You should want that.
Yeah.
You should want that.
Hopefully we'll get a repeat of what happened last week with the Bills and the Chiefs, except on the Super Bowl this time. That would be absolutely incredible.
That'd be great. But if you get the 49ers, you don't get that. If you get the Bengals, it's just going to be a blowout for whichever NFC team is going to be in it. So if you want to cheer for the most fun Super Bowl, you want the Chiefs against either of those teams, because even the 49ers will probably they're good. They'll make a good game plan. They'll keep it close, but I don't want to repeat of that Super Bowl. Let's get Rams Chiefs. Fuck it. Yep. Let's have two teams in a row defend their home turf in the Super Bowl. That'd be kind of cool.
That'd be baller as hell.
That'd be so baller. All right. That's the show. We got obviously next week we got Mike Trezano. We got Chris Barnett. Awesome interview. We might have some other guys unannounced at the moment. But we got some great guests coming up over the next couple weeks. Got some great guests for UFC 271 and the card after. So we're just kicking up. So we got some good things coming this week.
Sir.
We have some good things coming up. Anyway, with all that said, let's have a weekend. Be safe. Don't drive drunk. Don't drive drunk. Get an Uber. I don't know why I'm saying that, but responsible.
Hey, it's a good shout out.
Responsible. Yeah, shout out not getting arrested.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's something we can all get behind.
Let's get behind that. All right. Also, because everyone's going to call us casuals, just talking about the UFC, Bellator, and whatever's tonight. But who cares? Whatever. I'll still watch. I'll watch. I'm going to watch. I'll bet on it. Who cares? Anyway, have a weekend. Don't drive drunk.
Yes, sir.
Don't laugh at that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around with me all the way to the end. I just want to once again thank the sponsor of the show, Living.fit. If you're looking to better yourself, make sure you go to download the app or visit the website living.fit today.